Welcome to All Four Downs. I am Joe Aguirre. We'll bring the rest of our group of participants in just a little bit. Going to have a really good talk today here on All Four Downs. First and foremost, one of the big topics of discussion is Drew Brees, who made some comments that many people believe are controversial. We're going to dive into that, the reason why, and whether or not he should have said what he said. Now, Drew Brees has issued an apology. I'm going to read it. I would like to apologize to my friends, teammates, the city of New Orleans, the black community, NFL community, and anyone I hurt with my comments yesterday. In speaking with some of you, it breaks my heart to know the pain I have caused. In an attempt to talk about respect, unity, and solidarity centered around the American flag and the national anthem, I made comments that were insensitive and completely missed the mark on the issues we are facing right now as a country. They lacked awareness and any type of compassion or empathy. Instead, those words have become divisive and hurtful and have misled people into believing that somehow I am an enemy. This could not be further from the truth and is not an accurate reflection of my heart or my character. This is where I stand. I stand with the black community in the fight against systemic racial injustice and police brutality and support the creation of real policy change that will make a difference. I condemn the years of oppression that have taken place throughout our black communities and still exists today. I acknowledge that we, as Americans, including myself, have not done enough to fight for the equality or to truly understand the struggles and plight of the black community. I recognize that I am part of the solution and can be a leader for the black community in this movement. I will never know what it's like to be a black man or raise black children in America, but I will work every day to put myself in those shoes and fight for what is right. I have always been an ally, never an enemy. I am sick about the way my comments were perceived yesterday, but I take full responsibility and accountability. I recognize that I should do less talking and more listening. And when the black community is talking about their pain, we all need to listen. For that, I am very sorry, and I ask your forgiveness. Powerful words from Drew Brees. Clearly what he said was an opinion. I look forward to bringing our panel in because his comments were certainly controversial, but I'm not quite sure he said what people think Drew Brees said. It seems what Drew Brees was saying was he would never support anybody disrespecting the flag. And I believe Colin Kaepernick and Malcolm Jenkins and any of the outspoken NFL players would probably agree with him. Again, that was never the intent of those protests. It was never about the flag. It was never about the troops. It was literally about police brutality. And here we are dealing with this situation. It's blown up all around the country. Drew Brees said what he said. His teammates came out. They were all very angry. We've seen responses from LeBron James. We've seen responses from people all over the sport. And throughout all sports, Aaron Rodgers, amongst many, teammate Michael Thomas expressed his utter disappointment in what really were tone-deaf comments on the part of Drew Brees.
Well, I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America or our country. Let me just tell you what I see or what I feel when the national anthem is played and when I look at the flag of the United States. I envision my two grandfathers who fought for this country during World War II, one in the Army and one in the Marine Corps, both risking their lives to protect our country and to try to make our country and this world a better place. So every time I stand with my hand over my heart, looking at that flag and singing the national anthem, that's what I think about. And in many cases, it brings me to tears, thinking about all that has been sacrificed, not just those in the military, but for that matter, those throughout the civil rights movements of the 60s, and everyone and all that has been endured by so many people up until this point. And is everything right with our country right now? No, it's not. We still have a long way to go. But I think what you do by standing there and showing respect to the flag with your hand over your heart is it shows unity. It shows that we are all in this together. We can all do better, and that we are all part of the solution.
Welcome to All Four Down. This is First Down. I'm Joe Aguirre along with Jay Green, Tyler Bard, JJ Vargas, Hector Vasquez, and Trevor Keys from Keys to the City. Now, guys, first and foremost, look, Drew Brees apologized for what he said. This to me is just, it's a white man who doesn't have the black perspective, who's making the comments that, look, let me start off with this. Does anybody here hate America?
No.
No.
No, sir.
Right. So we're all on the same page, and whether you support the NFL players kneeling, which I have from the word go, whether you think it's not the right place or time for it, whatever your thoughts are on that, probably today not the day, or yesterday not really the day to make those feelings known. It showed an incredible tone deafness, but this is a man who I think is just lacking perspective. For him, it feels special to be standing there with his teammates with the anthem playing, because that means a lot to him. And I think, guys, what he doesn't seem to grasp is that his teammates don't hear that song and feel the same thing in their heart because of hundreds of years of oppression in this country. And really, to see Michael Thomas and to see Doug Baldwin and some of the reactions to what Drew Brees said, I'm glad he was quick to apologize. Drew Brees is a good guy. We know he's done a lot of charity work in the past, but this was stupid and this was not helpful. And can this be turned into a learning moment, I guess, is the big question. Jay Green, you're a regular on All Four Downs. Why don't we start with you? Tell me how you took Drew Brees' comments and what you thought about the backlash.
When I first heard the comments, to be honest, I was taken back a little bit, because I thought, Drew Brees in himself, I have a lot of respect for Drew Brees. My family's from the New Orleans area and from Louisiana, so I personally know, like, just few weeks ago, he gave $5 million. That's one of the biggest donations for the COVID situation down there in New Orleans. He was very instrumental in recovering from Hurricane Katrina. His voice was big out there, and a lot of the people respected him. But I just think when he made those comments, he was out of touch at the time. He was just totally out of touch. And it kind of seems like you shouldn't be, because that was pretty much 10 days after everyone saw the video. We don't have to go back into it. Everybody knows you've seen it. But to make those comments now, and to see all of the memes that we did see where Kaepernick took a knee, and of course the officer taking the knee, for him to be that blinded by it, and I know I was listening to Skip and Shannon this morning, and Skip brought up the fact, he's from Austin, Texas, so he's from a privileged background. Both his mom and dad were both attorneys, so he knows certain things. But I know his grandparents. He was very proud of his grandparents. His grandfather who fought in World War II. But to make those comments, and I've often wondered that when I used to hear individuals saying that you're you're disrespecting vets. I'm a vet myself. So. I know there were a lot of individuals that fought since in the history of this country, since the Revolutionary War. We fought in every single war. So for him to make those comments, it kind of made everyone think, like, even LeBron James was like, he talked about his uncle, how, he talked about how Captain's uncle fought in the war. How did he feel about it? So a lot of people didn't bring those points up. But with Drew Brees, I just think he just was out of touch at that time. But Demario Davis, this morning said he forgives him. I mean, and as a man to another man, I forgive him. I have nothing against him. I don't know him personally, but he's got a lot of healing to do. He's got a lot of work to do because the community in New Orleans is upset with him.
Yeah, Jay, do you like agree with? I've seen people saying F Drew Brees, burning the jersey. Like, do you think people feel like this is what they should be doing? Is this right? I mean, Drew Brees is so beloved in New Orleans, and I know he was out of touch with it. It was the terrible timing. And on a personal level, Joe, when this first happened 4 years ago, me, you, and Ted, before the show, because you had your political show, we used to get into serious arguments about this. And you know how I felt about it at the time. Well, my narrative has changed. To be honest, I can't even watch the George Floyd video because it gets me anger. It makes me want to go through that cop, throw him to the ground, even attack him. It's tragic. It really is to see that video for just the 5 seconds that I really got to see. I couldn't watch 9 minutes of that because it is truly tragic to see a helpless man losing his life because of an idiotic cop.
Let me chime into that real quick. I'm sorry, Joe.
No.
You're right. It bothered me. Initially, I thought it was an event that happened in the past. And when I re-looked at the video and everything and caught up with the news, I was like, oh, man, here we go, another incident. And clearly, that was murder. And I know we don't want to recap everything in the video, but to let all the viewers and the listeners know about this, look, as a prior military, and we all train the same way when it comes to dealing with people making that detainees and everything else. Once you put the cuffs on them, the number one rule is safeguard. And I don't understand why people never mention that on television. The media is not saying that stuff because this is old stuff. We all get trained the same way. You put cuffs on somebody, safeguard, swiftly take them away, and deal with that person at the station or at the designated area. Not the way it happened in Minnesota. And that bothers me because nobody has the decency to say that is the proper procedure. Everybody's quiet about procedures. Why? It's textbook. If you can get it online, you can find out yourself how you properly arrest somebody.
Look, here's the thing, though, and I think this is really important. This idea that, that these protests are all, or that the problem in this country is all based on the idea of police brutality. It's even worse than that. Jay, I'm sure you could probably speak on this better than anybody. I'm going to do it for just a minute. But if you look at the rate of African Americans securing business loans, student loans, home loans, college loans, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, there is definitely a systemic racism problem in this country, and it's based on, in many times, your appearance. And that is part of the bigger picture here is we can focus on the riots and we could focus on the police brutality element, but there's so much more to this that African Americans and really minorities in this country have not gotten a fair shake. Drew Brees talked about his grandfather serving in the war, and Michael Thomas mentioned his grandfather served too. Didn't come back to her hero's welcome. You guys want to talk about inequality? How about all those World War II guys, all these black airmen who came back over after serving their country? Do you know who got the GI Bill? The white soldiers.
Right.
Okay, so these guys came back from war, and right off the bat, baby, it wasn't going to be fair. It was never meant to be fair. Thanks for your service. Back to the bus. And that's the way it's been in this country. Will Smith said it, I think, really great the other day. Racism is not more prevalent. We're just recording it now.
Yes,
and it's got to change. It's got to change.
100%.
I did want to just kind of address back because I know Keeza asked me the question about burning Drew Brees' jersey and all that. No, but like those people, like I said, everyone was hurt, and I think it was just the initial jerk reaction.
stunned. They were like they were
Yeah,
shocked.
they were
by it.
stunned because that was the last person they kind of expected they would say something like that because they always
true,
felt
yeah,
Drew Brees
he's-
had their back.
He's been like kind of a savior since signing with the Saints
Yeah.
for all those years, and to somebody they look up to him as one of their respectable higher ups. Not even just players, football, sports player, but just in general. And they look at this guy as like a hero, and then you see something like that, it's like, what just
You
happened?
know,
Is this Drew Brees really saying this?
but the thing is that I don't think his intent was to
No,
be
no.
like white superior or anything like that. I don't think his content was any type of racism. I see JJ Vargas, he's hyped up, like want to breathe more. Jay, go ahead, man. If you gotta say something, go ahead, man.
Yeah, listen, when it comes to Drew Brees, I think that he did what every American knows their right is to do, which is freedom of speech and express their opinion, regardless of the backlash. And he did. I just think that his comments at the moment were just at the wrong time. And it really looks like, as he said, it just missed the mark by a lot, especially when it comes to the flag and how it connects to the protest and how people tend to confuse Kaepernick's kneeling with, disrespect to the military and to the country, when in reality, it really is, to show awareness of the mass murdering of these unarmed black men throughout the country. And they kind of get swept under the rug or just don't get the recognition that they should, and unfortunately for Drew Brees, he needs to understand that, he is the quarterback of the state of Louisiana, which is a predominantly black state. Everybody knows of how great he was since he arrived to the Saints. He was there after Hurricane Katrina. He was able to rally the team to a championship and really played a big part in the rebuilding of that community. And he will always be beloved by that. And it just sucks that such an NFL legend, I think we can all agree he's a future Hall of Famer. He has all the numbers in the books. He's won in almost every category. I think Brady chose him. He's trying to catch up to him, but maybe he will with those Tampa Bay weapons. But that's just yet to be known. He has Michael Thomas, and they can still make a lot of noise. But to stay on topic, he was in his right. It's just bad timing, And I know a lot of people are going to look at Drew Brees differently, especially maybe around the NFL and especially in that locker room. And it really makes you think, how is this team going to go into the new season? With this brewing in there, we all know that the have come short of playoff Super Bowl appearances.
A big problem too, JJ. There's a huge problem with how people interpret freedom of speech. Is you can go ahead and say whatever you want, but you can't get upset when I respond, because people are so like, what? So I can't have a different opinion? I'm like, no, you can, but your opinion may suck. And I'm going to tell you that your opinion sucks. I'm not going to sit here quietly and tell you that your all lives matter or your blue lives matter means more than my black lives matter. Because if you can't say black lives matter, but you can say all lives matter, I have a problem with that. And that's coming from a white American with all white relatives, except people who have married into my family. I do have black family who's married into my family. I just find it absolutely outrageous that people will post something, and then when I respond, they're blown away. They're like, well, you're infringing upon my First Amendment right. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Ty, that's the problem. Like anytime you do a different opinion or say something different than somebody else feels, it's going to cause somebody to say something. That's what the platform of social media has given us, and it's for the good, but it's also for the bad. And that's
you can't expect people to just sit idly by when you state your opinion and not get attacked if they disagree with you. It's gonna happen, and you're posting in a place where everyone can see what you've just said. Social media has been pretty toxic.
The key word we're missing, and Hector, you and I have battled each other when it comes to baseball, right? You're a Yankee fan, my Red Sox fan. We trash talk all the time, but the one thing that we know, that at the end of the day, we don't have nothing but respect. And I think that's what it's missing here.
There's no respect with one another.
You have respect. I mean, let me back it up real quick. No matter what the differences is, I respect you for what you believe. You respect the way I believe, and we just carry out our business. I don't have to attack you just because you think red is blue. I'm not going to curse you out and then throw you under the bus. That's not how you do things. And I think when people start putting their political views into place, people don't take a timeout and say, hey, you know what? I understand your view. I got it. blah blah blah, and move on. You know, it's not about being a Democrat, it's not being a Republican or independent or everything else like that. It's just you got to believe what you got to believe, and that's it. That's why we vote. We vote every single year. You know,
Ovi, hold on 1 second though, because I respect your right to have an opinion, but I will not respect your opinion if it is disrespectful or racist. I do not respect those opinions. I get what you meant, but it was the wording of that was you can have your opinion, but I'm not going to respect it if you're disrespecting someone else in the meantime.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not going to say profanity or any derogatory terms just to get into your skin and make myself try to be better, which technically when you do that, you just look like you're uneducated.
Yeah, exactly. And Hector served in the Army too, with the armed forces. So I'm curious to see, you know, what Hector's thinking here. We haven't heard much from you yet, buddy.
Yeah, you know, and I'm listening to everybody, and I think everybody has a great point. As an American, as a veteran, and I'm even going to take it a step further, as a Christian, I know people have heard this saying, he who has not sinned cast the first stone. We as an American country, we have a lot of ignorance. There's not a lot of education going on. A lot of people want to speak, but not a lot of people want to hear. Okay, so yeah, I get it. You know, let us agree to disagree. Everybody has their opinion. We have been given that freedom, and there's still people out there fighting for that freedom to continue, because there are at least 56, 57 different other countries out in this world that don't have the freedom that we have, like other countries do. So what Drew Brees did, it was a mistake. Okay. Who hasn't made a mistake in their life? As an NFL fan, I forgive him. I still got his jersey right here, and I'll still support him as an NFL player and me as a fan. So,
yeah,
you know, we just have to know how to approach these situations. And with everything right now, it's a very sensitive subject. So we have to know how to approach these things.
You know, real quick, look, one of my favorite things about this country and the way we react to things is, and you guys are all, I think, hitting this on the head. Look, Drew Brees said something stupid, was clearly affected by his teammates and other players around the league and obviously other sports figures weighing in and really kind of opening up his eyes. And then he apologized. And look, you know, not to get sidetracked, but I've said about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, hey, say you're sorry. Same thing with Pete Rose. Admit you made a mistake, say you're sorry, and I guarantee people will forgive you. That's what this country is all about. When you can own up to saying something and starting a conversation, I think this could become an incredibly good learning moment.
But I think that's the problem, is that no matter what his apology, you're still going to lose that credibility with players, people in general. I mean, it's just going to happen. Now people are always going to have that view, no matter what he said and his apology. Some people will accept it, some people are not, and he'll have that, and that's what happens. He loses the credibility because he is one of the big names in the NFL. We've been waiting for people like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, the biggest names in the game that are Caucasian. We need them to speak up and
use your platform.
You say use the platform, and I understand that, but there are many that delayed to speak up. You know,
let me kind of interject on something, because I kind of noticed something prior before about the individuals that did speak up, because I heard Carson Wentz speak up, I heard Zach Ertz speak up,
yes,
Joe Burrow speak up. If you kind of notice something, look at their ages.
That's these young guys.
It's the younger
generation.
Bring in my generation here.
Right. So if there's going to be a change, a real change that's going to have to happen, it's going to be with the younger generation, because when I see the protests, I see more white kids protesting than I see black kids.
You should have seen my town, Jay.
I saw Torrington. And I was impressed. And I was like, wow, you know, so that's who's going to make this change, because I think with social media and the videos over the years that people have been able to, that have been subjected to, it's changing them. It's changing the younger generation. they understand what's been going on for 400 years. And this is nothing new because I come from the generation where Rodney King was my wake up call.
Same here,
I saw the
Jay.
Rodney King video. Joe, you remember that?
Hell
So,
yeah.
you know, prior to that, I used to sit in elementary school and watch the videos of the dog, you know, the hoses on people in the 68 when the civil rights march. So I thought in my mind at a point in time, oh, it's gone. You know, racism's kind of gone. We were cool. And then the reality was the Rodney King video. So now it's the same thing with your generation now. You kind of had a chance to see.
Amen.
It feels out. We got Obama in office. Everyone kind of thought that racism died out, and then all of a sudden,
it was just suppressed, my man.
Yep, we get all of the shootings that started to be advertised, and that's where we were like, "Whoa, hold on." So I admire this younger generation because right now they're taking a stand and they're saying enough is enough, and I hope that they continue to do it because the more action we see, less lip service, more action. We're gonna make it. We'll get to what this country's all about, for real.
Heck yeah.
Actions
Jay.
speak louder than words.
Real quick, before we go to second down and talk about who should be held accountable for all of this, Teddy Keys, thank you so much for joining the show, man. I appreciate it. I know you're kind of on location, so much appreciated. If you want, I know you've been listening. If you want to kind of weigh in before we move on to second down, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
No, I listen. The biggest thing is, like you said before, is everyone's just got to listen. You know, I posted something yesterday on a video. Some people who are friends with me might have seen it. It was a military guy who was being antagonized by a African-American guy who knew that the cameras were on, that he couldn't do anything. And I kind of took offense to it. Now, I didn't say anything that's going on is wrong, but that video in particular took offense to me. Now, and if you saw my Facebook, I seemed like I brought a very good dialogue because we had a lot of comments from ex-classmates, white, black, all over. And I had one of my old teammates who was African-American, and we had a long-ass discussion about how things go about in this country. And if you see the discussion, it was like, okay, listen, this is the video that took offense to me because it was a military guy. I said I had nothing wrong with the protest. I said, listen, I might be ignorant. I said, I come from a world where the way how I was raised, where I'm from, you treated people with respect, didn't matter color, race, whatsoever. Now, I understand that that's me. That's not how everyone works. And then, I posted something afterwards saying, I feel like today's social media, I think it's the best of both worlds. I think today's world, you get social media is good because we're able to do stuff like this, right? But the other thing is it gives everyone else a platform to really put their opinion out there, and all it does is cause controversy sometimes. You know what I mean? There's more good than there's bad.
You lose friendships.
And the problem is everyone's opinion, they look at it as their opinion is more important than someone else's. And I think it causes more conflict sometimes at the end than really helping out the problem. And, I didn't really have a problem with Drew Brees, what he said, because what I took in perspective was he was talking about the flag and what it meant to him. He didn't say, and because I read the whole thing, he didn't say that because you're kneeling, it's a bad thing. And if you go back and look at the Photoshop when he played in London, he actually took a kneel with his teammates while the anthem was playing.
I think it's just bad timing.
Of course, everything is bad timing.
Horrible timing.
The best thing that happened is what he did is, listen, a lot of people take it offensive, but if anything, it brought dialogue, okay? Maybe it opened up another avenue that we didn't look at it, and it helps him out and helps other athletes out. And because he's such a major part of the NFL and his community of New Orleans, it might open up some other eyes that a lot of people didn't see beforehand. So
no, Teddy,
I think it brought better dialogue than anything.
You made a great point about social media, but I appreciate that the same thing that you said could be divisive about social media, because people behind the keyboard, they put their first thought forward. And I don't want to know your articulated thought. I want to know exactly what you're thinking, because you think behind a keyboard sometimes you're not going to get that face-to-face reaction. But now I see you. I still see what you're thinking.
Got to jump in here and say this. Look, everyone's got a right to an opinion, obviously. And there's times where you should express that opinion, and there's times where you shouldn't. This was not the time for Drew Brees to comment on that particular thing, especially when he couldn't be any less accurate about what he had said about, again, the idea that protest had anything at all to do with the anthem or the flag.
Right.
I mean, that's a ludicrous thought. And
So,
look,
can I say one more thing
ahead,
after you're
Trev.
done? No, after you're done.
okay, look, people want to post on Facebook, and that's fine. Here's the thing. I don't know if you guys saw this. Some of the most ridiculous and disgusting thing I've seen was this George Floyd challenge going around on TikTok.
Oh God!
among
Worst thing I've ever
among
seen.
the
But
totally
that's also
most,
the younger generation.
the most
That's the problem.
tone-deaf, privileged, stupid people in the world that could look at this, given the situation we're in, and make a joke about it is ridiculous. So, look, I understand everyone has social media and everyone feels like they need to weigh in. Here, newsflash, you don't. You could sit there quietly, keep your mouth shut, and just take it all in. I promise you, if you don't comment on your fourth grade buddy's post, the world's not going to end, okay? Everything's, you're not going to fix it with your great post about how we should all be equal because, look, and I hear this argument from guys on the right all the time, and it pisses me off to no end. I used to think this way. I used to feel this. I read statistics and I learned facts that it's not as simple as that, okay? That people who are not white in this country, generally speaking, don't even come close to having the same experience that we do. And to be so tone deaf that these people, I hate to say that word, these people, my apologies, I don't mean it like that, but the idea that black people in America have been telling you for a long time, Jay brought up, we lived through the LA riots, man. We lived through that. There was some crazy times. Here we are 20 years later, and what's different? Nothing.
Anything.
And
Well, no,
it's
that's not
it's
totally true. Things, Joe, things have gotten a little bit better. Now, this
little bit
is
better
a
in 20
really
years,
bad
a little
situation
bit
because,
better.
and I'm saying this with perspective, go back 40 years ago. It's a lot better than it was 40 years ago. Okay? You were able to go to the same restaurant.
Yeah,
you were able to do certain things that you weren't thinking. Listen, I know it's a touchy. Listen, I know it's a touchy line. I think I'll be long gone before it's ever perfect. Okay, but the way I look at it, because somebody was like, "You got to talk about 400 years." Listen, you're not going to be able to erase 400 years of oppression, but what you can do is you can correct the future. Okay, you can't change the past, but you can correct the future. And I'm just saying, you're not going to be able to change everyone.
Jay,
But if
you
you can
wanna
change
jump in
one
on this?
person, it might make a difference. Go ahead, Jay.
Just real quick, because everybody's got great opinions. I love what everybody's saying. If you kind of want to get a grasp of what's going on, I heard everybody hear the comment that there's a rapper named Killer Mike.
Yes,
Killer Mike. Yeah, Killer Mike he was talking and he said, if you really want to grasp the experience of what black people are going through in this country, to constantly hear it from me as a black man, it kind of gets like redundant after a while because I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall all the time, just kind of saying what I'm going through. You got to kind of learn from the face that you see. So he said, look at Jane Elliott's brown eye, blue eye experiment. She's an educator for 20 years. She first started doing that experiment the day after Martin Luther King was assassinated. She said that he made such an impact on her and her class that she wanted to make a change immediately. So she's been educating and doing this for years. So if you want to know exactly what it's about, and from a white perspective, telling you how racism is, you got to look at herself. Because that she's the best as far as I learned from her. And I was going through it. I'm going through it. I live it. I know Hector he lives it. I know he sees it. Obi, we go through it. We all go through it. We're going through it. There's times I know because we learn things, and what we learn, we can unlearn. She said we can teach our kids in 20 years, we can eradicate racism, starting at kindergarten through 12th grade. We can get rid of it.
And if you want to just say, I know you wanted to get into second down. There's your answer right there for who's held accountable for this.
You're absolutely right.
It's not. Listen, ladies and gentlemen. I know we're gonna. It's people want to say the politics. Understandable. Whatever. You have an opinion. It all starts at home. If you're not taught the right way, that's why you have these issues. It's parenting.
Absolutely right.
And my dad has always said that. He said it about sports, and he continuously says it. And that's why me and my brother, we are white men, males, but we we're going to respect you because we were brought up that way by our parents. And anybody that knows us, trust me, you can ask what kind of family we are. We're all about love. We're all about respect. And it starts at home. It's not anything else. It starts at home, because if it doesn't, guess what? You're never going to solve it. Plain and simple.
Listen, you bring us into a really good point. Denver's head coach, Vic Fangio, stated that there's no racism in the NFL. He said, quote, "I think our problems in the NFL along those lines are minimum. We're a league of meritocracy. You earn what you get what you earn. I don't see racism at all in the NFL. I don't see discrimination in the NFL. We all live together, joined as one, for one common goal, and we all intermingle and mix tremendously. If society reflected an NFL team, we'd all be great." I know. I played football at Platt in Meriden, extremely diverse place. I know we got quite a few ballers on the line here. I gotta say, I've told my wife this before, and she has a really hard time understanding it, that we didn't have racism in the locker room. That those dudes in that locker, those were my brothers. I didn't ever think twice about who's black, who's white. It wasn't like that. There was never any racial issues.
All love. It's all
there
love.
There were no cliques. You know, and as a matter of fact, I was telling J.J. Vargas the story earlier today. We were playing against Southington, a predominantly white team. We stuffed them at the goal line. Their running back, who got stopped at the goal line, tossed the football in our direction and uttered the N-word. And I immediately reacted with a bear claw to the side of his head, and I got the 15-yard penalty. You know, look, the N-word doesn't offend me, but it offended – I still felt it because he was talking to all of us, and that was wrong. And so
Absolutely.
I agree with Vic to a certain degree. And yes, I think if everybody sort of was of that mindset that black, white, Hispanic, Asian, no matter what you are, we're a team. And this is the same with your high school football team as it is for this country. We're all on the same team. We all want the same things. We all want life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. We want to be able to go and get in our car and drive somewhere, and if there's a headlight out, I shouldn't die. I shouldn't have to, you know what I'm saying? Nobody should die because they have a headlight out or because they wrote a bad check. That's an insane world that we live in. And I mean, not only for blacks and minorities, but the police should never shoot anybody who's not in the middle of a violent crime.
Amen.
I have a real problem with anybody, black, white, or whatever, being killed by the police. If you're not posing a threat, if you're not coming straight off a triple homicide, I have a really hard time, and I've been saying this for quite a few years, I have a really hard time with police killing people. And there hasn't been correct. You're supposed to serve and protect, and it seems like that hasn't been happening. And again, look, we can have the good cop, bad cop argument. We know most cops are good and they do their job. So are most pilots. You know,
right.
I'm not trying to make a joke, but look, if you're a bad pilot, buddy, I mean, you make one mistake, and that's the only one.
Maybe you shouldn't be a pilot anymore, right?
Well, there you go. If you can't do the job, then find something else to do.
I will always support law enforcement, but I will not ever respect a bad cop. I won't ever approve like that guy. I'm sorry, none of those guys, they got what they deserved.
You know what that is? That's a bully, man. That's a bully.
Yeah,
finally, the first time they get their badge and their gun, they walk around saying, "You know
with a
what?
badge.
You can't do nothing."
Yep.
Listen, if I could get in on the police enforcement point, I think that you made a great point about it starts at home. I think another change that could happen is the hiring process of these policemen. I feel like the hiring process needs to be more thorough. The background searches need to be more thorough. I think people in the community, especially the black community, should be involved in the hiring of these policemen in one way or another. I also think with that same point that people from the community, hopeful black men that want to make a change in those communities should aspire to be policemen for that community because they know it better than anybody else. And when you put an outsider in a situation that he doesn't know well, who knows how he's going to react.
100% agree.
Somebody that comes from this place, he knows the people, he knows how they act, he knows the businesses, the peoples, the families. He's more prone to act more appropriately in a hostile situation where things go out of script.
Those
Go ahead, Jay.
those cops deserved what they got. Plain and simple. I hope they never see the light of day again because like I said, I won't watch the whole video. I just can't.
And I think it's unfortunate that, because of these 4 bad cops, it does present that, possibly all cops are bad, when there really are good policemen out there that really do take their job seriously and want to help the everyday man. And these bad apples, they just get a little bit too much power in their head, just use it the wrong way.
I'll tell you what's brought me to tears in the last few days is watching the police who are taking a knee with protesters in honor of George Floyd. And I take this as a step in the right direction, an acknowledgement that, hey, we sometimes screw up and we don't do our job right. And look, it's not fair to blame this on all police officers, but every police officer bears some responsibility, okay? That's just the way it is, okay? Yep. Just like any time an athlete does it, it's a black mark for the entire league. Same thing for the police. We know that the police and they're union guys. I like unions. And I understand how unions work, and sometimes it's unfortunate you end up having to defend those bad apples. I think this is time for now where the police, like JJ said, take a look at your hiring practices.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I know, Joe, I know. I was denied 3 times for Yale.
Is that right?
I mean, if there's somebody that knows the whole process and has gotten rejected, I mean, not to gotten rejected.
And you know what's funny? The first time I got farther in the process the first time than I did the second and the third time.
Oh my goodness!
I'll be honest with you. I went through the hiring process in Hartford, so I know exactly what JJ's saying because one of the things that I did was when I took my physical that day, I watched what was coming through the door. I saw what was coming through the door, so it was like, "Are you serious right now? You can stop this." I mean, there's a polygraph process. There's a polygraph section. You gotta take a polygraph test. If you ask the right questions, you can weed out the problems. I said, but most people don't realize. I mean, I'm an educator by trade. I do research on things and I know things. Back in 2008, the FBI put out a report that a lot of white supremacists and KKK members were going to flood the urban areas. It's not by happenstance that these things are happening. They could have weeded these things out. They waited for a little while. And President Obama signed a blue protection bill, which now pretty much federalizes the police, and they pretty much have almost like diplomatic immunity. So we have to be very careful with just the laws and just knowing how we can work things. But going back, I didn't want to go back off subject what we're doing with the Dick Fangio about the whole no racism in the NFL. I mean, my cousin's Doug Williams. A lot of people don't know that. When he was getting drafted, Skip and from Skip and Shannon said he did a story, he went to Grambling, and he said Doug should have been the number 1 pick. But one of the racist things that were going on in the NFL was the fact that black quarterbacks didn't have the mental capacity to carry a team, which we know was a bunch of nonsense because Doug ended up going on to win the first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Then you have Warren Hoon, and you have, so many others that came into the league, Randall Cunningham, that were able to dispute this. So, I mean, then you look at the fact that now they just tinkered with the Rooney Rule. They were going to do incentives for players, for teams to bring in minority coaches. I mean, I know the Giants fans. To this day, I'm scratching my head. I want to know who this coach you got. He's from New England, wide receivers coach. You could have had Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City. 2 years in a row, he had the best offense. But these are the things we're talking about where guys don't get a chance. Byron Leftwich is in the league. He's an offensive coordinator. He couldn't get a shot.
If I could piggyback off your topic right there. We talk about a league that's about 75% black, and there's only 3 black head coaches out of the 32 available pots. I just see something wrong. I really just see something wrong with that picture. You have Ron Rivera that's not in Washington. He's a minority coach, so you can say it's 4.
Flores,
but you have a lot of these guys that are really good offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators that, look like they're in a position to get a job. Like you said, Eric Bieniemy should have been, offered an opportunity in a location, but he didn't.
But I also feel that the coaches themselves, not the owners, I think the coaches themselves, when they establish their coaching staff, that they are responsible to make sure that the coaching staff is also diverse. And that's how, and that's how you make them build that resume so that they could be competitive to be head coaches. And that way we'll see more African Americans as coaches.
No,
can't really-
slow down. No, look, Jay already nailed it. Look, and I'll tell you what, Jay, I wanted Eric Bieniemy. I also wanted the Giants to draft Dwayne Haskins with their first pick. I thought that was the right quarterback, and a lot of Giants fans, sadly, tried to pass him off like he's a running quarterback, which is baloney and doesn't bear out.
It was a pocket passer. Anybody that watched him at Ohio State, I'm an Ohio State fan. He was a pocket passer. A bunch of baloney. Stop talking. Just stop watching.
It was clear there was a portion of the New York media that really didn't want a black quarterback, didn't want a black coach. I remember when I saw Joe Judge, Patriots special teams coach, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, who is this person? What kind of the Patriots? Are you kidding me?
I hit them with the house.
That was my immediate thought, Jay, was, my God, how come Eric Bieniemy can't catch a break? How unbelievable does this guy's offense have to be? This guy's a former player. This guy was a stud in college. I mean, this guy is a great.
He also has Patrick Mahomes, though. Patrick Mahomes does solve a lot of problems.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I'm not sure Patty Mahomes would be as good if he didn't have Eric Bieniemy telling him what to do.
I mean, he would. He has Andy Reid. He has Andy Reid.
He's going to be the next Chiefs head coach. Andy Reid's going to leave soon. Andy Reid's going to leave.
Honestly, but we know the NFL has a problem. Because that's why they put an incentive in for you to hire a coach, to hire a GM, to hire an owner. That's why they did things like that. Because of that, because they know there's a problem. They don't want to say it out loud. So what do you do when you have a problem? You try to incentivize someone. Well, here, I'll give you $5 if you do this. You know what I mean? I'll give you a higher draft pick if you hire a black coach or if you hire a black GM. It shouldn't be like that. It should just be norm.
But hold on. It's not even if you hire. It's if you follow the process.
I know. I believe if you hire.
Look, here's the problem with the Rooney Rule, and here's why it needed to be overhauled. Okay, I remember when Mike Nolan got hired as the 49ers head coach. Okay, they all but announced they were making that hire. And then they went around and they started calling all the usual standby black coaches, hey, can you just come in for an interview to a job that you have no chance of getting? How absolutely demeaning and insulting to a black man. Hey, I just need a couple token black guys here so I could check some boxes. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. It's a dirty, disgusting shame that the NFL has to incentivize hiring black coaches with draft picks. That's insulting. And for anybody who wants to be like, well, the government doesn't need to get involved. When the government doesn't get involved, this is what happens. You have 3 black coaches out of 32 teams in a league with 77% of black players. Are you kidding me? That's why the government has to intervene. That's why we have to have these laws. And you might look at it and be like, oh, it's like a special. But yeah, we're trying to even the friggin' playing field because it's not even.
We should have 20 coaches, 20 head coaches.
I mean, Obi had mentioned earlier about the coaches need to hire the guys. I said, it starts at the top. I said, because I remember Al Davis. Al Davis was a trendsetter. Al Davis hired the first Hispanic coach, Tom Flores. That gave him the first Super Bowl, who's still not in the Hall of Fame. We won't get into that. But he hired the first African-American coach, Art Shell. So actually Art Shell, I mean, and also Al Davis was really one of the first recruiters of going to the small black colleges and getting talent. You know, Gene Upshaw and all of those guys. That's where Jerry Rice came from. You know, Walter Payton. They all came from small schools in the South. So he was one of the first people to go out there and actually start recruiting black talent and getting people like that. So it actually starts with the ownership. The owners are just comfortable with who they see, which happen to look just like them, and that's what they do. But they have to be willing enough to go outside the box and bring some new people in, maybe at the start at the college level or whatever.
Nail on the head once again from Jay. And let me throw this out to the white guys real quick. Okay. When most of the people doing the hiring are white and they're in an interview. And look, I'll just look right across the room right here. If you guys all came at me, all things considered, similar resume, right? Ted, there's a good chance you and I probably have the most in common. We're close in age. We like each other. You know, we're both Italian Americans. Jay, you and I are very similar in age. We kind of grew up in exactly the same generation, right? JJ's a little younger. Trevor's got the hair. You know, Tyler's a theater guy. You know what I mean? And
What about me? What about me? What about me?
Then there's OV.
Then there's OV.
You know, look, most of the time, what it boils down to, look, you guys all have the same resume. I'm a white guy. Probably going to hire the white guy, too. He's also a Yankee fan.
Said it best. It's comfortability.
It's.
I mean, he's right about it.
But it shouldn't be. You
exactly.
know, because
it shouldn't get to that point.
We should be comfortable with everybody, and it's clear at this point we're still not.
Let me follow up that point. How you said how the coaches will hire most likely the white coaches, kind of like how Jay said earlier about how these in the hiring process of these cops, they have to take the polygraph test instead of having a white guy coming in for the job getting questioned by 5 white guys. Put 3 black guys and 2 white guys and see how he answers the question. So fill in the room with 5 black guys so they can see how he reacts under the pressure in that situation. Because you never know. You like if you have somebody in an environment for long enough, you're gonna see through the person's personality.
JJ, can I jump in with you on that? The only thing I was also going to say, and this happened for me when I got hired here at Yale, was after I went through all the bosses and all the regular interviews, my colleagues now, I had an interview with them. So what I'm saying is if you had a committee, a team committee, whatever your team leaders are, your representatives, had some type of meeting with a coach, you get a feel for a coach. Think about it. You would have a little bit, maybe having, now listen, I know the players are not hiring those guys, but they're the ones got to participate and be part of the coach's future, right? So if you got one of your defensive linemen, you got one of the offensive linemen, you got a defensive back, you got some of these boisterous team leaders to have a part and say to who they're going to be working with could be at least a helpful, they're not going to make the final decision, but it could be a helpful progress going forward with the coaches. Because listen, if we've learned anything from sports, that communication between coach and player, that respect goes a hell of a long way. You see some of these guys when they work with these coaches and the love and the passion that they have for these guys. You hear like LT when he talks about Belichick, you know what I mean, and Parcells. He could ride them a certain way, but there was such a respect between the two guys that can go such a long way.
Like Kareem and John Wooden too, also.
Yeah, I would say that in the NFL, you know, I think that the higher ups have a stronger stranglehold in that whole situation with the hiring process. Unlike the NBA, you know, guys in the NBA have more star power. LeBron was able to fire David Blatt and get Tyronn Lue in there. So you know that, you know, they have more to say in their league than the NFL players do. Everybody knows the GM.
Exactly.
The NFL players should be more empowered to have more and say who they want in their locker room, what assistants they want in there, what coaches, because at the end of the day, you know, there's the one that's really trying to come together to win a championship. Upstairs make it happen, but the players are in the environment most times than not than the owners are.
I mean, considering like what's going on right now, I mean, I heard Brian Dawkins talking. He said 2 coaches that made an influence on him were 2 black coaches, like Ray Rhodes. And he said, and the only reason why, he said, because the situations that were going on, they could relate because they gone through similar situations that he did. So that's what that's basically on. You know, you just want to get familiarity. But then again, like Joe said, I grew up here in New Britain. You know, one of the things with the coaches that we grew up with, they were part of our community. Like when I first started playing football, the police they were part of our community. Those are our coaches. So I really didn't experience a lot of that, the police brutality and stuff, because my coaches, like they were my friends. They were father figures to us. So that stuff never really bothered us here. So I mean, it's kind of one of those situations. I guess, you know, you got to look at it as you look at your individual experiences and what you've gone through, and you got to take it from there.
It really does come down to love and respect. You know, when you, I mean, look, I had a beloved high school football coach, Tom Ryan, who. I can't remember, there maybe 20 years straight where he had a black kid living with him and his wife who had some sort of familial issue, and he would take these kids in. You know, again, to grow up in a diverse city like Meriden, to go to a school like Platt where, you know, I just learned to be comfortable around everybody because you didn't really have a choice, and it was either sink or swim. You know, I also came from a parochial school, Jay. So, you know, if it wasn't for playing Little League Baseball, I would have gone into a public school in the 10th grade not knowing anybody. So I had sports. You know, I had friends on the football team and the baseball team that I had played with when I was a kid. And, man, what a difference it made. Because I had always been respectful and kind to these guys. I got there, and it was like, oh, hey, finally, we get you in our midst. And like I said, you know, in the locker room with these guys, like brothers. I mean, never had an issue, never thought twice about it, never, you know, we didn't, there was no racial slurs. There was none of that. And it would be nice to see America sort of adopt that approach to everything.
Well, Joe, Jay said it perfectly. It's kind of where you're surrounded, is how you're brought up, where you're from. You know, we originally grew up in West Haven, so you got a mixed culture in West Haven. If you know West Haven, you know it's total blend of mixed cultures. Then I moved to a city in North Haven. Now, when I first moved there in '96, I'm telling you, when I went to school, it was like 95% white Italian, and then everything else, the 5% was either Jewish, black, or whatever else, okay, whatever. As things change, it was funny because when I came to town, it was so different. It was such a different world because where I came from, there was such a mixture of cultures and people and just personalities, where when you moved to North Haven, predominantly Italian, white town, there was a lot of cliques. Yeah. And you see that. Now, when I went to college, I went to that too. And I went to Western Connecticut in Danbury. When I played on the football team, we had 100 guys. And I'm telling you, it was probably 60-40 white, black. I mean, it was close, mixture. And there was no issues whatsoever with locker rooms, player, because I think in the biggest part of, I think what we're all trying to say is we all had one goal. The problem in society is no one has one ultimate goal. When we're all on the same football team, now, if we were a football team right now, our ultimate goal is to come together as a team, be the best possible team every week, and be 1-0, and then to win the championship. The problem is, in society, everyone has their own individual goals. And we've talked about this on the sports shows, especially with me and Trev, Joe, and you. I said, this world is an individual society. There's no such thing as team no more. When you watch SportsCenter, what do you see? You see an individual play. They don't talk about the guy that made the pass. They talk about the guy that got the slam dunk. Well, who got the rebound? Who had the pass? If we're not working together as a team, you never get anything. If it's like, well, I just want to make the better world a better place for myself. Well, all right. Well, how does that affect your brother? How does it affect the neighbor? That's the problem, where I think sometimes we want to relate it to sports, but in society, people don't look at it as in sports. They look at it as, how can I make the world a better place for myself and not for the team?
Yeah, you have to think about yourself first, but I mean, plain and simple, yeah, you're 100% right about that. I agree with everything you said. It's like a football.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong by saying that? I'm asking everyone.
Hold on, we have to have a sit-down conversation as a country. Left, right. This isn't about Republican, Democrat. This is about right versus wrong. And I know there's going to be uncomfortable conversations in there, but let's grow up, people. There's a bigger issue than your egos. And that's the problem right now. We have so many big-time egos in this country that I know that we try to agree with one or the other, and that's why we have that's why we always are arguing with one another. We have to sit down conversation as a country and have uncomfortable conversations. Hey, guess what? Uncomfortable conversations lead to good things in anything. Relationships, friendships, family members. Uncomfortable conversations help. And that's what we need to do. Herm Edwards said it best. We have to have a sit down, and guess what? You have to face the facts. And if not, then there's the problem. I mean, you're just going to continuously show what the problem is in the country.
And I want to share you guys with something, because all that you said is great, but there's one key element that y'all missing, and I want you all to hear this real quick. So don't go away real quick. And it's a video clip from The Rock, and you can hear the rest of his speech on his Instagram, or you could go on ESPN.com and check it out. So listen in. Here we go.
Where is our leader? Where are you? Where is our leader at this time? At this time when our country is down on its knees, begging, pleading, hurt, angry, frustrated, in pain, begging and pleading with its arms out, just wanting to be heard, begging and pleading and praying for change. Where are you? Where is our compassionate leader who's going to step up to our country, who's down on its knees and extend a hand and say, you stand up. Stand up with me. Stand up with me because I got you. I got you. I got you. I hear you. I'm listening to you.
Well, powerful words from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, a man who I hear a lot of people say should run for president. To hear him speak like that, I think, and again, I don't want to make this about politics, but it would be nice if we did have a president who would come out and speak and talk about that idea of one common goal and us all sort of working together to figure out what the right thing to do going forward is, or to try to quell the anger that is being felt all throughout this country. It's almost shocking, especially in an election year, that the president of the United States hasn't come out, Ovi, and literally said, look, everybody calm down. Let me be the adult in the room. This is like literally Donald Trump's big moment where, look, he talks all the time about being a friend of the African-American community. Well, do something now.
You're absolutely correct. And it's shocking that we have to live in this era right now, the way things are, and we need a leader. And I could carry out what the Keys brothers were saying, is that we could make the discussion. We could do so much. But the key thing is we need that leader. Who's going to lead the way to the promised land? We've dealt with this decade after decade. There's always an incident, and I feel like we're taking a step back every time. And we discussed this. So when are we actually going to make this change? When are we going to move forward? This is too much, and I can't stand it. But we only could do what we can at home. And like everyone on the platform was saying, it starts at home. I got little ones that I'm teaching that everybody's equal. And one example, I say, hey, it don't matter if you're white, black, brown, or whatever it is, green, I don't care. All right. When you cut yourself, what color is that? Everybody bleeds red. We're all the same, no matter what. We may come from different places, but at the end of the day, it's all about respect, and we need to respect one another. I don't have to like you. I don't have to do anything like that. I don't have to be your friend, but I will respect you. And we will work together on this. And I know I'm talking because throughout this whole process from last week to now, I have mixed emotions. I'm upset. I'm sad. I want to do something. It's crazy. Sometimes I want to punch somebody or whatever the case may be. It's everything's in me, and we shouldn't even be this way. This is year 2020, and we're at this. Unbelievable.
Look, it's been a crazy year. I think there's already tempers flaring because of the lockdown, the quarantine, the misinformation there. I think people are already on edge. And so, you compound that with the killing of another black man. And I'll tell you, the second I saw that video, Officer Chauvin and that look on his face, I think that for me was what made this one, I hate to say worse, but like worse. For me, Eric Garner, to me, goes down as one of the worst incidents of police brutality, where a man who sold a cigarette and didn't pay like the quarter tax to New York City was choked to death on the street by 5 police officers. I mean, that was pretty bad. But to see the look on the police officer's face as he knelt on George Floyd's neck was so disgusting. And I think for the most part, most people I've spoken to understand this was murder. And that these situations, and again, I hear people, they're going to start complaining about 13% of the population commit 50% of the crimes because they're over-policed. Black people are over-policed. Minorities are over-policed in this country. And I think most white people don't get it. Here's the thing. I like to tell a story to my white friends about an incident I was involved in several years ago where I'm pretty sure if I was a black dude, I would probably still be in prison. I didn't even get in trouble. So, I understand what white privilege is. I remember the first time I heard that term, I was offended by it. I thought, my life's not easy. And then someone explained, think about the worst moments that you've had interacting with police or otherwise. And then imagine if you were black and that happened. And the second that happened, I was like, oh, my God, I feel like a horrible person. Geez, I've gotten away with so much in my life. I don't even think twice about it.
And that's why I had the argument. We had those arguments a couple years ago, me, you, and Ted, before shows about when this all first stirred up by Colin Kaepernick. I understand. I mean, 4 years later, I understand. I mean, I know it's 4 years late, but I get it. I feel for the African American culture. I really do. It's tragic. It's sad. I have no issue with what the protesters are doing right now. They're peaceful. I didn't say the rioters or the people that are just stealing stuff and destroying these businesses, these cities, and people's lives. I'm not talking of those people. Forget about that.
Yep.
The protesters, what they are doing. I mean, we got to come together, and
guys,
people are trying to finally do something about it.
I appreciate you saying that, Trevor.
I'd like
You
to see
guys
you with
don't
me at one,
even
buddy.
understand the conversations that I had with Ted and Trevor. I mean, again, I'm not trying to brag, but from day one of Colin Kaepernick's protest, I read and I listened to what Colin said. And if you don't know the whole entire Colin Kaepernick story with Nate Boyer, the Green Beret and former NFL player, and how that evolved from sitting on the bench to kneeling because he wanted to respect the military, we had talked about that. And again, Trevor, I'll give you all the credit in the world because you're a good white person now. You listen. No, I'm serious. No, listen. I'm serious.
I know. I get what you're saying,
guys. He had to shake years and years and years of believing there's a level playing field, that black people who are acting out just, like it's on them, that there was no bigger problem, that the poverty cycle in the ghetto isn't put in place to keep black people where we want them. And I don't mean me, but you know what I mean. That these, again, I talked right off the top of the show. We talked about bank loans, business loans, home loans. I mean, it's not just police brutality. The black experience in America, I can understand why black athletes don't want to stand for the national anthem. Because, again, I hear that song, and it makes me cry. It's a beautiful song. I think of justice, and I do think of World War II, and I think of the Civil War and where, Americans told other Americans, you can't do that. You can't have slaves, man, and we'll fight you for it. And anybody who tells you the Civil War wasn't about slavery is probably a white supremacist.
It was about states' rights, Joe.
Yeah, states' rights.
It was only about states' rights to own slaves.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
To try to conclude this, I know we went over time and everything, but I want to say one thing. I thought in my head, I contacted Joe and I said, hey, we need to do a show. We need to come back. And those of you that know All Four Downs, we discuss football and everything else, but I thought that this topic was very important to address the issues. We have a responsibility, since we have the tools to communicate and spread the word. Look at the screen, viewers. I have a white, Italian, Puerto Rican, and black. And I did that for a purpose. Not only because we're all, most of us are like family, we'll be with a hashtag CMG podcast and everything else, but there's a purpose. It's diversity. I grew up in diversity from New Britain, Connecticut. And I was an equal opportunity officer when I was in the military. And I believe in that. And I believe in this platform. And I believe that we all could work together. I wasn't around in the 60s. I wasn't around any of those times. But one thing that we should learn, and the more the story is that we all could get along if we're educated properly. Okay. And it starts from home. It starts from One, how you vote to be the leader of your town. Who's your mayor? Who's your alderman? Who you vote for Congress? Who's you voting for president? I mean, it goes. There's so much factors into this. So pay attention. And if you're not registered to vote, vote. All right. If there's something that you're not doing, don't be afraid. Let's start doing it. Let's make it happen. Change comes from one person, honestly, and that's you yourself. How are you going to portray everything that we talked about? What are you learning? Because I tell you what, the media, to me sometimes it's a shit show. Excuse my language. All right, because sometimes it could be a positive, but most of the time it's a negative because they just want news. But what are you going to do in your house? What are you going to do in your local community? And how are you going to spread the wealth so that we definitely have change? I don't want to wait 20, 30 years. I want to do this now. And that's what we need to do. Now, I know everyone's going to debate. Everyone's going to come up with excuses. It's not about excuses. It's about doing. Action speaks louder than words. And that's the bottom line here. And I would like to conclude that hey, number one word that we need to focus is diversity and respect. Joe, any last words on that?
I absolutely do. First of all, Ovi, thank you for asking us to do this. You know, this show will be back next week, and we will talk about football. We will actually talk about football, college football, NFL, and some exciting XFL news. But I when you asked me to do this, Ovi, I started hitting up as many of the podcasters as I can because, as you put it like this, look, we have a platform. We have a nice, diverse group of podcasters, of white guys, black guys, Hispanic guys, and gals. And you know what? Every single person I talked to was excited about the prospect of being on the show and talking about this. So thank you so much for doing that. And thank you to all of you guys for coming on here and giving your opinions and sharing your experiences, especially you, Jay. You live the life, man, and you've been around a long time. Not to make you feel old, but you've seen it. You and I have been seeing this for 40 some odd years, man.
Yeah, I mean, be honest with you. I mean, what we have learned, guys, we can unlearn. Pull your kids to the side and just talk to them. Have that talk. I mean, Obi and I worked at the same school. I mean, I'm gonna cut this real short, but I know we got to go. But Obi and I worked at the same school, and I had a little guy. He's a Philadelphia Eagles fan, just like me, a little white kid, kindergarten. And every time since this situation has come up, I've cried at nights because I've been thinking to myself that somebody's going to have a conversation with that little guy, and he's not going to look at me the same way. And that shouldn't be it. That shouldn't be it. It should be all about us working with our babies and making sure the future is going to be right. Because, like I said earlier, the younger generation is going to be the force that's going to get us by. And I commend you guys, the younger generation, just keep talking to one another, because the only way we're going to get this over with is through dialogue and talk. It may be uncomfortable at times, but this is the only way we do it. We have to continue to keep talking and understanding that we have respect for one another. And Hector said it the best. As a Christian, I'm a follow Christian myself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. I'm like,
Amen.
Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
I may never be able to understand your struggle, but I stand with you, and we will get through this together.
Hey,
absolutely.
We're brothers in the same at the end, and we're all brothers at the same. Like if we, like you said, line us all up.
That's right.
Prick our fingers if it's turned red. Now, if you prick one of our fingers and it turns green, we got a problem. But we'll go into that another time.
Hey, one more thing. Hey, Hector, you've been kind of quiet over there, man. I know you absorbing everything. What's your last words?
Yeah, I agree with everybody. We have to, it starts at the home. We have to be the leaders of our home because we don't have that leadership as a country. You know what I'm saying? We have to be able to educate our kids because none of us are born racist. It is a taught thing. Okay. I grew up in the streets of New York, okay, and in a predominantly Hispanic and black neighborhood, but that doesn't mean that I'm racist towards white folks or any other race. Okay, it's a taught process, and I was not taught that, and we should not teach that to the next generation. We want our next generation to fix what we are messing up right now, because our First Amendment is being violated to the utmost max right now, and it's ridiculous. the peaceful protesters are getting shot down, okay, being hurt, being arrested for no apparent reason. And this is very disgusting, especially coming from me as a veteran, seeing this. This is not what our country is supposed to be about. And with other countries looking at us, fighting amongst ourselves, we're going to fall for anything. We're becoming a weak link as a country because we're fighting amongst ourselves instead of sticking together and fighting against other countries who are trying to take us down. And The Rock put it the right way. Where's our leader at?
I got two things. Heath Ledger said something in the Dark Knight, and it's true. These civilized people are going to eat each other. And guess what? We're seeing that right now. People are literally killing each other, and it's just tragic. We need to seek love, not hate. And that's the problem right now. We got to seek love. Equality, plain and simple, ladies and gentlemen.
Look, no one likes looting, and no one wants to see violence in our streets. We all love America, but in different ways and for different reasons. I won't defend the destruction of property, but I understand the right to protest and the right to be angry. Black Lives Matter has been trying to keep this peaceful, but there are many people taking advantage of the situation. And Tifa, I'm looking in your direction. This isn't your platform, and it isn't your fight. There are also rogue cops, white supremacists, and other right-wing elements trying to stoke the flames. And the criminal element, well, they're the ones that are doing all the looting. It seems most people on both sides of the aisle agree George Floyd was murdered. But some people want to focus the conversation now on the looting. But the National Guard's been activated, and I'm pretty sure you could leave it to them, and you won't have anything to worry about. In the meantime, we do have a problem that we can and do need to fix. Systemic racism is a part of this country's history. And no, you shouldn't be punished for the sins of your ancestors. But the black community's been held down for a long time, and they're sick of it. And you should be too. Thank you for watching this special episode of All Four Downs. For Jay Green, Victor Vasquez, Ovi Munez, Trevor, and Teddy Keys, and for Tyler Bard, I am Joe Aguirre. Make sure you give us a follow on Facebook and Twitter, All Four Downs. You can also check us out at hhwshow.com or visit clovercrestmedia.com/All Four Downs. Until next time, thanks for watching.